In this episode with Matt, we talk about a lot of things from business to hunting to dog training. There's a lot of things that we cover. It's about 2.5 hours long, and it's really encouraging, and it encouraged me, and I haven't stopped thinking about it for the past couple weeks since we had this conversation. So here's Matt to talk about how he stays motivated and how he runs his multiple businesses and stays on track of everything.
Once October hits, I mean, we're chasing geese. Seems kind of like we got a bunch of early season birds here.
All right. Matthew Wilson, your dog trainer, hunting guide, an avid hunter, and award-winning waterfowl caller and call maker. You've guided across the country. You've been training some of the most impressive dogs that I have ever seen. And I'm excited to talk about some of your hunting stories, some about the good and the bad and the ugly of dog training, especially the ugly, some of the bad dogs maybe that you've been dealing with, and then the importance of just hunting and conservation, because that's something I've started to learn over the past few years, have been not privy to it. As like I got my hunting license, well, we went the first time that waterfowl hunt in the field across from your house was the first time I went on a hunt ever.
Right.
And I hadn't even bought the right license, so I couldn't even hunt. I had my gun with me, and I didn't have my federal waterfowl license, so I couldn't actually do any hunting. So we just filmed it.
Happens.
But yeah, it was so cool. Like that is what I remember of seeing the dogs work. Would you have Tank?
Yeah.
In Memphis.
Tank.
And it's so cool to be able to see working dogs, like most farm dogs. Like Nicole and I have been talking about getting a dog, and I'm trying to figure out what is best for us, because of course I want some. Having seen your dogs, I want a lab.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, okay, do I just get a farm dog that'll just be lazy and lay around and just protect my animal? So we're trying to toss up between. And Nicole wants a golden retriever, but
Well, it's a pretty solid dog.
tell me what was or what has been your worst experience training a dog.
Oh, good question. Let me go back through the Rolodex here.
I'm sure there hasn't been one.
Yeah, there's been several. I've had, and nothing against rescue dogs because I've had some good ones, but I've also had some really hard cases. Sometimes I question how truthful some of these organizations are with people and what they tell them when the dogs come home. And, anytime you get a dog, you roll the dice. Whether you buy a dog, it's like sitting down at a card table at a casino. Once they flip the cards over, those are the cards you get. So even if you buy a well-bred dog, it could still have behaviors that you don't care for. But you're probably stacking the cards a little better on your side. Nothing wrong with adopting. If that's what you want to do, zero trouble with that. But I have had a few cases that were like, I wouldn't be able to deal with this dog myself as a professional, let alone put it into a home with a family. And yeah, I've seen some really hard cases, but one in particular, it was a mixed breed dog and it had come from Texas. And, they were having a hard time with it in the house, and you could tell that it had basically just been wild, like lived on the street. And as soon as I got a leash, you could tell the family was kind of nervous of it. And as soon as I got a leash on it, it was wild, like jumping at me, trying to bite me, and to the point where I was like, I'm not actually sure what we're going to do with this dog right now. Like I don't feel safe for you guys to actually put this dog back in your vehicle. And unfortunately, there's been a few cases over my years of dog training where I'm like, my recommendation is that, you do not rehome this dog. Like there's the possibilities for this to be rehabilitated or slim, with a major amount of work. And that dog ended up having to be put down, right? They did eventually. We did get it in the kennel and they took it home and they tried to work with it and it a couple weeks later nearly bit one of their kids. So
What kind of dog was it?
it's just a mixed breed. Hard to say. You could do those dog DNA tests, but this was a dog that was supposed to be sort of rehabilitated and what do they call that? They have a term for it that they use. But anyway, that was a tough case. And I've had several tough cases since then, with just because dogs have all kinds of problems, right?
How early does that trauma onset? Like, is that something where under a year you're like, okay, I can generally do it, or is it dependent on the severity of the trauma too?
Yeah, it definitely depends on that. There's so many factors and variables. It's very much you can kind of correlate this with people too, right? You know, lots of people have early childhood trauma that, you know, gets them the rest of their life, and then other people can go through counseling, figure that out, and live their life later on in life. But you know, sometimes with dogs, it depends on, again, there's so many variables. It depends on how much perseverance they have, trainability, things like that. If you can put them through some exposure therapy, you know, I mean, perfect example right now, the fireworks in Woodstock. That's a huge deal every year. Fireworks anywhere is a huge deal, and it's kind of a touchy subject with people. And I mean, yesterday, for example, I was 20 feet from the line where I was going to run my dog. Broad daylight, somebody started firing off fireworks. Well, my dogs don't run from those, right? They're not scared of those things. But some of the neighbors' dogs did. One of them in particular took off, right? They couldn't find it. And, you know, when we talk about this trauma, so to speak, like, my dogs are conditioned to that. They understand when I hear bang, something positive is going to come after that. And I mean, fireworks or not, you're not going to raise your dog in a bubble. There will be other points in that dog's life where there will be loud noises, thunder, could be a dump truck, door closing, anything like that. So really, it should be part of their socialization as they grow up. And the more that you can socialize your dog to things like that as they're coming throughout their life, even if it's a dog that you get that's a rescue that's somewhat scared, you know, putting a lot of time and effort into exposure therapy, just like a person, you know, scared to get on elevators, scared of this or that, exposure therapy. You know, you can help them out through their life rather than just avoiding the situation.
Do you find people who are parents are generally better dog trainers or better apt to take care of a dog? Because I see, as somebody who takes care of animals, just in general, I guess, I wasn't privy to before we had a farm how like physical you can be with an animal. Like I see a lot of people who will baby their pets. Like yes, a dog may be small or smaller than you, or even like yesterday I had to pin down one of my goats to be able to get a collar off of him because he was just so excited to see me and to get him untied. And I was like,
Yeah.
dude, I need you to stop moving and leave me alone. And the same thing goes for a dog. Like if you've got a dog that's 100 pounds, 150 pounds, you need to be able to control that animal or it's
Yeah.
going to control you.
Yeah, and when it comes down to that topic of being physical, we're very non-physical with our animals nowadays. So much so that even when you said that, like to me as somebody that, you know, I train working dogs and we are very physical with them. And that's a big umbrella. That doesn't mean that we beat them up because we absolutely don't.
Yeah.
But we understand dogs better, I think, than the average person. So when you to answer your question first, it really depends on how people parent. Some people are very much on this end of the spectrum where it's purely positive. We never raise our voice. You know, everybody gets
You get spoiled and
get,
shitty kids.
Yeah, everybody gets a participation award sort of thing. And then obviously you have the other end of the spectrum where no news is good news kind of thing. And you know, so the people that are sort of balanced, somewhere's in the middle, you know, they have boundaries and standards for their kids' behavior, they generally do well with their dogs. But it's not always that way. Sometimes people baby their dogs way more than their kids. So, but you made a good point on being physical. Dogs are physical. You know, we communicate through using our voice, English, but mostly dogs are very nonverbal until it gets to a point where they need to be verbal. And most of it's physical posture. We forget that, right? We communicate with dogs the way that we communicate with each other. And it's very, very rational to think that that's not the best way to do it. but that's just how we're conditioned to communicate, right? So we've started to get away from being a little more physical and tried to be way more treat driven, which is fine. We should be trying to use less pressure all the time. But bottom line is there will be pressure. As soon as you hook a leash on a dog, there will be pressure. So your program should have a healthy balance of showing the dog that when you feel pressure, it's not a good thing. You should back away from it. So like you said with that goat, like, you know, it's not like that goat is traumatized from what happened there today. That's how you deal with those things, right?
Well, if you see animals deal with each other, like even
Yeah,
dogs playing, like
no
they'll nip at
question.
each other, bite at each other.
No question. Yeah. I mean, you think lots of times people come home with brand new puppies and their teeth, or sorry, their mouth is full of razor blades, their teeth. And it's like, man, he's biting me like crazy. And you know, we're a little worried about it. And I just say to people, look, don't be too upset about that. I mean, think about it. Think about young kids. Well, they're probably not biting each other because they have hands. But dogs don't. So they have two things when they wake up in the morning. Number one, I'm going to eat when they're puppies. And then number two, I'm going to try to kill my brothers and sisters all day long. We're just going to fight each other. And that's what they do, right? So, yeah, they're super physical. You're absolutely right. Yeah, we forget that. We forget that they're dogs. That's the problem. Animals, you know.
Did you have animals or did you have dogs, I guess, when you guided out west?
Yeah, yeah. I had two dogs. I used to fly out with two dogs, which was wild. Especially the first time I went out there. I had like no idea. I got off the plane. I'm like, okay, I have these two kennels. How am I going to get them to the truck, right? And then, of course, if you've been to the airport, they didn't have. They had these little trolleys that I had to put the dogs on, and I didn't have any ratchet straps or anything. I'm like, how am I going to keep them on here? So I had to take like two of those carts. But the people from WestJet were always super good. They're like, here, well, you know, somebody was going to take one, so we got them out. And then ever after that, I just made sure that I had straps. But yeah, it was good because we hunted every day, twice a day. So that's a lot for one dog, right? That's a lot of work. And we sometimes forget that we're just standing there. The dog's the one doing the reps, right? Twice a day is a lot. And I mean, does that mean the dog can't do it? No, but you're going to burn them out, right? I mean, I would be tired. You are tired, you know.
Okay, the number of times that I've gone hunting without dogs, like probably 2 or 3 times I've gone hunting without dogs, and you shoot them and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, we gotta go get those, run into the field, and you don't think that 20, 30 meters is far, but you're like, dang, this is real far.
Yeah, until you do it like 30 times
Yeah.
in the morning, and then you
Carrying
think,
a hefty goose.
yeah, like a 6 to 8 pound bird, you know. Yeah, it's a lot of reps. So yeah, it was great. That was a super good experience for me. For
Hunting
sure.
out west.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it really was, just because it's so different from here, right? You know, the Central Flyway is the flyway. That's the main duck factory out there, or waterfowl factory is like Alberta, Saskatchewan, you know. And I was in Coronation, Alberta, so I got to meet a lot of really cool people, you know, from all over the world that had traveled all over the world. And yeah, it made a lot of really good opportunities for me. So, yeah, and I had never, I think the farthest west that I had been at that point was like Ottawa. I just jumped on a plane with two dogs and flew out there. Yeah.
What was the draw to go out?
Just the opportunity. I think as a waterfowl hunter, you always think about the West as being, you know, just a mecca, right? That's where you see clouds of waterfowl. And when you think about the migration, because of where we are, we have a good migration in the Atlantic Flyway, but the Central Flyway, the migration is so big, like you just hear them flying all night, and the skies are at times, you know, especially with snow geese, full of birds. You know, it's just, as an enthusiast for birds at all, it's quite a sight to see, to be out there. So for me, yeah, just growing up as a waterfowl hunter, it's always been a draw to want to go out west. Yeah.
To just go hunt somewhere else?
Yeah, and I like to travel. I really do. So I had the opportunity to go out, and yeah, I took it. And I did that for, I think, like 5 years. The first year I went out, I thought I went out for a long time. I was out there for like 6 weeks, 5 or 6 weeks. I thought I was going to die at the end of it, because I was guiding in September. My last day was October 6th. And I'm like, oh, well, you know, it'll still be warm. It's always tropical like it is today. No, it wasn't. No, I learned real quick that it gets cold out there. The last day I was like froze. I didn't have the clothing, but the next year I was good to go.
Were you hunting fields or water?
Always fields.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, always great big fields. Yeah. Yeah, these guys rarely hunt water and really weren't set up for it. So, yeah.
Have you done much hunting on water, like from a boat?
Oh, yeah. Later in the year, we don't here too much, but later in the year when we're traveling, it's mostly water hunting. Like if I go to Nova Scotia or down below the dam in Mactaquac or Grand Manan, any of that stuff, it's water hunting. Or even for us late in the year, December into January this past year was really good because our season got extended. So yeah, it's mostly water hunting because it's sort of snow dependent. If we get like a foot and a half of snow, they're not going to get through that. So any birds that are still left are on the water, so on the river.
Do you prefer the hunt out west where you've got a ton of birds and like they just kind of come to you, or here, or even like on the water where based on the videos, it looked like it was a lot harder to hunt eiders and to actually get a full bag of birds?
Yeah, no, there's no place like home. If you were to ask me, I mean, this is my favorite place. I like the other places. They're fun to go. Like hunting eiders, yeah, to be on the Atlantic Ocean or in closer in the Bay of Fundy is, it's hard. The tides are wicked and, the wind gets going and it's cold and there's really no shelter. So, that's a big thing. Tide and current in our area is, well, it's highest in the world, right? It's ridiculous. So, but it's a lot of fun. It's fun to go and do. And like if we lived closer and I felt safer in my own boat going, and we've done it before, but to do it at the level like when we go with Tony and Graham and Ann, that's not something you're just going to go and do, or you shouldn't, you got to know what you're doing. But yeah, I definitely home, yeah, is where I like to go. It's just a unique area. Yeah, no place like it.
Now, I've seen some old videos of you being interviewed doing after your call competitions, and you look like such a hillbilly from the backwoods.
That's because I am. You cannot hide it.
Is that everybody in call competitions, or are there guys there that like are prim and proper at all?
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure that there is, but I think every sort of sector of hunting has their own sort of a group of guys, and the way that they are, you could kind of pick them out of a crowd. I think who's who, but yeah, very, very much the Carleton County twang, and you know what I mean. It's to look back on it, even for myself. Those interviews, I'm like, holy cow, yeah. But that was a good, huge part of my career. That's kind of what.
How did that come about?
Contest calling?
Yeah.
I always knew that it was a thing, and there wasn't really a lot of help around here, but.
To me, that's one of those things that, like, professional video games. When I was younger, I played video games, but like, oh yeah, that's a cool thing that you do. But you went forth with actually contest calling.
Yeah, and I knew that at the time, that was kind of a way to bust into the industry. So, I'd always been a caller, and I found out that there was a contest in Halifax at the Sport and RV show. And I was like, hey, I'm going to sort of learn how to do this and throw my hat in the ring. So I did, and super nerve-wracking to get up there and do your thing because you can't mess up, right? The second you mess up, you might as well, you don't walk off the stage, you finish, but your chances are slim of getting anywhere unless everybody else blows up too. But so even though I was nervous and I had done it that time, I'm like, wow, that was a lot of fun, And then I heard the other guys that were up there. I'm like, wow, I actually suck pretty bad. Like I need to get way better. I need to sound like them. So yeah, at that time, as far as like YouTube and things like that, like there wasn't a lot of dialogue out there or literature to help you do it. But it was just a lot of time and effort and practice and calling and contests, and it took me a few trips, and then I finally won one, which at the time I was unaware of how major it was, right? I just thought it was a duck and goose calling contest, but it actually ended up being the nationals. So yeah, and then I went to Stuttgart, Arkansas. That was in 2007. And I almost didn't go to that contest because, we had just had a brand new baby. Rowan was like 9 days old. So I was like, I don't know if I should go to this or not. And anyway, had the support from home and went down and ended up winning. And then when I went to Arkansas, because that qualified me for the Worlds.
You won nationals on a whim.
Yep.
And then on a whim decided to go and you won nationals nationals. Sorry.
No, I won nationals and then it qualified me for the Worlds in Arkansas.
And that was in Arkansas.
Yeah, because you have to qualify to go there, and there's only so many. And that was the only qualifying contest in Canada. And I think that was the first year we had a qualifier in Canada. Maybe. I could be wrong there. But so once I went down there and got around that culture, which was also a place that's like a duck hunting mecca. It's the rice and duck capital of the world, Stuttgart, Arkansas. And I went to Richtown, which, they're like, nobody will ever beat them for contest wins in duck calling. They just own the history that way. And I went there and met all those guys who were like, idols of mine in the contest world, and then got to experience all of that, So then I really realized, okay, now I see where people are, how much better they are. But it's their culture, right? Like nobody here does that stuff. So then I was really hooked. And then it just sort of took off. I started winning more contests here and got myself qualified to get back to the Worlds. And spent a lot of time with Butch Rich and back down there. Because the next time I went, I spent a week with him, who's the guy who started Richtown Duck Calls. And I would show up there at the little shop every morning. And I went the first day and I figured stuff would be going on. But it's like a Stuttgart, it's like the size of Heartland. And there was nothing going on early in the week. So I said, hey, are you willing to help me, learn how to blow this duck call a little better? And he said, yeah. And anyway, he did. He spent the time with me every day. And he gave me the type of tutelage that I like, right? Being a tradesman, it's like black or white, If you weren't doing it wrong, he'd stop and yell at you, or, sometimes. Especially if you did something that he just told you not to do. Yeah. So, but I was so much better, and didn't make it through the first round that year. But the next time that I went down, I did, made it through the first round, which was huge for me. It was 30th out of 70 that year. And as soon as they called my number that I had made it through the first round, did the cuts, they cut the field in like half. I was like, I could go home right now. I'm happy, even if I blow up in this next round, So, but contest calling is kind of what put me on the map in my waterfowl career, for sure, with other companies. And that's kind of how you made it in those days. Yeah.
What makes a good, how is it judged? Other than, of course, it's sounding like a duck.
Yeah, it's just flow, control, it's like playing sort of any instrument. Like think about somebody who can just shred on a guitar, you know what I mean? You're just in awe. Even people that don't play guitar can say, wow, that guy is like amazing on that. So it's a lot of control. There's a lot of times where it relies on breath, like can you tell where that guy takes a breath, or does it just flow seamless? Like you can tell that he's in shape, sort of athletic that way, or has super good breath control, and just the whole routine flows along really nice. And yeah, the notes that they use at times. Duck calling is certainly in an open routine. Everybody's pretty similar. Goose calling, it varies a lot more. But yeah, that's what it comes down to. Just flow, You can tell. Again, that's sort of a good example, like being a musician yourself, like somebody that can really hammer out riffs on a guitar, like you can tell who's really good, right?
What makes goose calling so different?
Their vocabulary is huge. Yeah. Ducks sort of quack, and that's about it.
Quack and whistle.
But yeah, there's not a whole lot to duck calling. Not to downplay it, because certainly contest duck calling, there's room for separation there between people, but goose calling, there's so many vocalizations that they make. Their vocabulary is so vast, and when you think about the control it takes to make some of those notes and then make your routine flow along with them, yeah, that's the biggest thing. I think that their vocabulary is just huge. Yeah, I love calling geese.
When along there did you decide to start making your own calls? Or was that not until later?
No, it was later. I had worked with a few companies and seen the process and knew that it would be a lot to get started. And a local guy from, well, local, I say local to the Maritimes, Glen Gillespie in Prince Edward Island, had a company called East Coast Calls, and he had done a good job making these calls. And it wasn't his career. Like, he was a guide and he did make calls, and then his career changed, as many of ours do. And he took a job with fisheries, and he just started to work his way up through the ranks, and the call company kind of went to the wayside. And yeah, I just a few years ago I just got a hold of him, and I was like, hey, I think I'm ready to, at this point, go out on my own. What do you think? Like, can we make a deal on your company? I know it's just sitting there. I don't know if you have interest. Maybe you're going to bring it back out. And so I made a deal with him. He was happy for me to take it over and run it. And yeah, that's kind of where East Coast Calls was revitalized, brought back to life. So it was Glenn that started it before. And Glenn Gillespie was a outstanding goose caller.
Do you make many a year? Do you have a lot of turnover?
We do now, yeah, because we've really put a lot of time and effort into it, and we have a good pro staff. We got guys clear across Canada now, which is something that we did this year. You got to be trying to forge ahead with it, right? And it's kind of just been holding its own for the last few years, and then we talked about it this year and said, let's put a push on this year. Let's do something with this. So, yeah, it's moving forward all the time. We got some really good guys on the staff, and calls are moving a lot. We're selling more now than we ever have, and for us it's not I hope we get them in Canadian Tire or big box stores. Like, it's always been, if we sell 100 a year, that's fine. We're going to sell 100 good ones, right? We want to make sure people are happy with them.
Can you tell an East Coast call when you hear one? Or does that, like you said, depend on the musician to be able to play it?
It would be tough. It would be tough that way, because they're all so good nowadays, But yeah, the guys that have them are happy with them, and we're super happy with the sound, and we've got a good guy making them. He does a good job, and we came out with duck calls this year, which it's like building a piano. Took a couple of years to make and get right, and we're happy with them. Guys are happy with them, so we've got more coming. So it's fun to design things and bring them out and know, like, over the years what you've liked or disliked about other calls, and yeah, have your own brand,
Being able to try it out.
Yeah, knowing what you like, and it's your own spin on things, for sure. Yeah.
What makes a good, is it the feel of it? Is it being able to blow it well? Or what makes a good call for you?
Myself, it sort of depends on the type of caller you are, but myself, I feel like there's two types of goose callers. People that can blow a lot of clucks really fast, and it's super impressive, right? And then on the other side, there's people that blow a lot of goosey notes, trains and turkeys and different notes like that, and more for hunting. And that's kind of where I am on that side of things. I've always liked to do those more ground notes, be more for hunting. And I mean, I cut my teeth as a contest caller. I'd still consider myself a contest caller if we got it revamped again. But certainly a call that sort of has a wide range. Medium length call that's got a wide range acrylic, Excuse me.
Now, the first time I heard, or when we went hunting, I was appalled at how many geese we were able to hunt, or how many ducks you can shoot. What is the importance of, like, conservation with that? Like, I think last year I asked Steve how many you guys shoot in a year, and, like, you're well over 1,000 geese that you'll down in a season.
Yeah, we do well. Conservation is always huge, right? I mean, everybody, as you're, like we said earlier, you're always sort of beating the drum for, eating closer to the farm, eating things that we know where it came from, things like that. But we always want to put more in than we take. You know what I mean? So conservation as far as conserving land, not only that, but research, things like that. I did a lot of podcasts this year with guys from Canadian Wildlife Service, talking about all the projects they have on the go, banding, seeing how farming practices nowadays almost change our migration, things like that. On the conservation side, there's also conserving our sport as a whole, like hunters in general, right? Because there's lots of people nowadays that want to do this, but might not have the opportunity. That's always been a passion of mine, to have young people getting into it, because that is the future, right? As much as we need to conserve wetlands, we need to conserve waterfowl. That's super important, and we always want to give back more than we take, and hunters are number one for that. We're not out there to completely destroy the resource. That's the last thing we want. We want it to be there for generations, so our kids can enjoy that. Things like Delta Waterfowl, Ducks Unlimited, several other organizations are important to support. But first and foremost, we're conservationists for sure. Absolutely. I mean, other people might not see us that way. And we do go a lot, and we go hard, and yes, we do shoot a lot of birds, but I mean, it all depends on how you want to put meat on your table, And lots of times people will say, what do you do with all those birds? But when you take the meat off a bird, even if you shoot several over a month, like, we don't have the opportunity here to go out and shoot a moose unless we get a license, right? Which offers you a ton of meat. But it takes a lot of geese to add up to what you would get off of a moose, right? So you don't, like, when somebody shoots a moose, you don't say, what are you going to do with all that moose meat? Well, you're going to eat it, right? Like with geese, you're going to eat it. We're going to grind it up, and we're going to eat it. And we're going to share it with the people we love, right? And we absolutely love it. It's super good, lean protein. Hard to beat,
I was surprised how much goose meat was like a steak. First time I cut into it and cut some rounds, I was like, that's just a red, like, I thought it would be like a chicken.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's a bird, you'd think it would be like a white meat, like a chicken breast.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's super good, lean protein, man. I mean, the biggest thing with any wild game is people overcook it, because it is so lean, right? Just zero fat on it. So, yeah, conservation is huge for us, giving back in several different forms, right? For advocacy, to get people into it, wetlands, waterfowl, research, things like that. Yeah, millions and millions and millions of dollars go into that every year from hunters. Yeah.
Do you find fewer and fewer people are teaching their kids to hunt or have interest in it?
It seems that way. The numbers, and as far as licensing in this country go, yeah, for sure. And I'm not sure. I mean, there's several factors as to why. I suppose that would be, but anybody that goes and does it, even yourself, like, it just hits you. It's pretty hard to go out and say, I didn't enjoy my time out in the field with those people, or just my time out in nature. Simple things, when we talk about having gratitude for stuff, like, we get to see a ton of sunrises. I say it all the time. I'm like, the sun's about to come up, and there's the majority of the population are still sleeping. They don't get to see that. We see it every day, We get to see nature at its finest points, and at its most brutal points for some things too, if you're going to be an outdoorsman, right? So.
Well, and I think there's so many people who have a disconnect from reality.
No question.
And it's not just where your food comes from, and like, people don't want things to die for their food, and veganism is a whole other story. Veganism, vegetarian, whatever. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to your way of life and things, like, people are so scared to talk about death and talk about killing, but like that to me seems like a disservice to our veterans in our country. But then also just to people who do raise your food and people who butcher food and people who hunt for their food, because there's a line there between doing it yourself and then just reaping the benefits of what somebody else can do.
Yeah, and whatever path you want to go down as far as how the food makes it to your table, whether you eat meat or don't eat meat at all or don't agree with that, your way of life in general has an impact. And because of that, there is death. Whether it be the practice of farming to grow that food or driving a vehicle, you are not removed whatsoever. You know, like people such as yourself or me may have blood on our hands from, you know, you're slaughtering animals here to eat for your family. We're out in the field getting our meat, things like that. But nobody is removed from that. You know, we're just the people holding the axe, I guess, at the end of the day.
It's important to use certain language. I debated a vegan last year, and arguably I lost the debate just because of the way that they frame language. Specifically, when it comes to killing, like it's very violent and seems very violent language. Like I remember the first time we hunted, or the first time I guess, had my hands on a dying goose. You shoot it out of the sky; it's full of beads, and you have to break its neck. You spin it around, and you feel the neck break, and that seems pretty brutal, but that is the quickest way, the easiest way to be able to put it out of its misery.
Yeah, to dispatch those animals for sure, and we never want to see anything suffer, and definitely that's the play on what we do, right? It's you know, the verbiage that people that kill animals use is vulgar, but I suppose it depends on how you see it. You know, you could make that play, sure. I mean, depending on how you see the world and what you define as brutal or vulgar or whatever. But I think it stands to reason that nobody is removed. If that person sat here in this chair today, unless you walked here or, I don't know, levitated here, you're part of the killing of some amount of animals. Like if you drove here, there was things that pinged off your windshield. You know, the fact that you bought a vehicle, you supported a company that, you know, when they were making the steel, when they drove your vehicle here, the whole process, you cannot be removed. So I don't know. When it comes down to the moral virtue of, well, I'm not the one that's holding the axe, whatever makes you feel better, I guess.
I think it's important. There's that delineation between lessening your impact too, and I think there's a lot of conversation going on around the like reducing your carbon footprint and making that stop. But then there's also with regards to animals, like okay, should you kill fewer? And that's where I align a lot with conservationists, with other farmers who talk about, okay, factory farms are bad. These farms where specifically feedlots I'm not a fan of, because you just grain them, get them as big as you can, as fast as you can, and then send them to slaughter.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the world now. I mean, you and I know how that goes and why that is. Why there's industrial farming now. It's all around us, you know.
And so much is wasted too. You get, I think I saw a statistic recently that said like 50% of the meat that's raised, specifically in the U.S., is discarded. Like it just goes to waste because it sits on a supermarket shelf. Somebody doesn't buy it, and then it gets thrown out.
Yeah, probably, yeah. But I think that's always the debate is, you know, we don't agree with the killing of animals and things like that, and I totally get that. You know, you're gonna, if that's the way you want to live your life, that's fine, and you lessen your impact as long as you're able to admit that there is an impact regardless, you know. And if that's the way that people want to live their life, that's okay with me. I'm not against that. Go do your thing, whatever makes you happy. You won't see me slamming your cupboards at all. But don't slam mine either. You know, I'm going to go out and I'm going to shoot game and I'm going to bring it home and we're going to eat it. You know, or I'm going to go to guys like Luke Fleming. I'm going to buy beef from him that he raised on his farm. And that's what I choose to do with my family. You know, that's divine design. That's the way we've survived for hundreds, thousands of years, you know. But that's the way I choose to do things. But that's my only thing with that argument, is that sometimes I feel like it comes down to there's some sort of moral virtue on, well, I don't actually kill those animals. Well, you do. You know, you may not admit it, but you're part of it in some way, shape, or form, always, forever. You cannot be removed from it. You know, yes, outwardly we're out there doing it and you're not, but you do have an impact on this world. I think we all can agree on that. There's no sense in, you know, trying to argue that fact, you know.
Being ignorant is easy, and blaming other people for your problems is easy, but actually having a hand in it.
Yeah. And like I say, I totally respect that. If you don't want to go that route, that's fine. You know, it's totally up to you. But the thing I do have a problem with is people that take that route and then sort of shame you if you don't, you know, because you kill and eat animals.
Do you find your supply chain for what you do eat is shrinking?
As far as what?
Where you get your food. Like,
Oh.
you said you get your beef from Luke and you do a lot of hunting. Like, do you find that you more lean towards getting stuff locally?
I definitely try to, as much as I can. Yeah. Yeah. I like to know, what I'm eating. Obviously you can't get it all. Like, you do have to go to the grocery store and stuff. But I really find, like, in our area is seasonal, right? And it's a short season here. But lots of times you go there and the things that are there, lettuce being one, that seems to be an ever growing thing that we can't get, or when we do get it, it's very small and also very expensive, you know. Yeah, I try to buy as much local as I can, and when it's in season, I try to get it for sure. And I just want to support people around here, you know. Family farms used to be way more of a thing. It's you know, you drive through Quebec, you see all these little farms, and now they may be owned by a bigger farm nowadays, but it used to be everybody had a farm. That's what you did. You farmed, and maybe you sold some stuff, or maybe the neighbor had stuff that he grew that you could trade or barter and trade for, or you had an animal that you were going to slaughter, and, you know, back and forth. He had pigs and you had beef, whatever. Everybody would support everybody else, and that community is gone. And it's not totally because people don't want to do it. It's because it's just harder to do it now for many reasons. You know, you're almost, especially dairy. I mean, you went around to the dairies around, like, you got to have a pretty big operation. There's not very many small dairy operations now. You know, they're pretty sophisticated.
Do you feel that government interference or overregulation is playing a role in that? I know you mentioned dairy. Like, I know that's a huge role, but is it playing the same in, like, hunting as well? And people, like, our firearms bans and stuff, is that causing people to not want to hunt or not have to deal with the bullshit?
No question. I mean, when the registry first came out, tractor trailer loads of guns were handed over to the police out of fear, for sure. And it's just, I mean, just stopping.
Wait, when did that happen?
That was
The long gun registry?
yeah. That, I don't know what year it was. That was the first time it came in. We spent a couple.
I've never heard that.
No,
That people willingly turned over.
yes, yep, and they were chopped up. Yeah,
That's like some
tons.
authoritarian. That's something you'd hear of, like, North Korea, or doesn't sound like something that would happen in Canada. But just trucks full of guns were just destroyed because they were banned by the government.
Well, just they did. It wasn't even that all of them were banned. They were just, people needed to register them. Maybe widows took them in or whatever. I have these guns. I don't know what to do with them. I don't want to get in trouble. Here you go. You know, take them, kind of thing. And you know, we spent a couple $1 billion on that for what? Never saved anybody's life. It told the government who had guns, not where the criminals were hiding guns. It's never been about criminals. It never has been. It's so very simple and rational. You just have to, even if you're not a gun owner, if you're not a hunter, just take a step back and look at the broad view. How is that going to help when the vast majority of guns that are used in crimes are illegal guns? How's that going to help? They're not being registered. Ben, let's go rob the bank in town. Oh, wait, we got to make sure that we register these guns. No, it doesn't happen, right? It does not happen. So when they come after us, law-abiding gun owners, that doesn't help. It's a ploy. I'm not a conspiracy person. It's just very rational. It's almost like math. Like, just look at it. How does it make sense? To put more rules and regulations on me, I haven't done anything wrong. You know? And, but it's a good political play, along with a lot of things.
I think those could be divided too. The regulations could really be divided to rural versus city. Like, I don't think anybody really needs a shotgun if you're living in downtown Toronto. You're probably doing something nefarious, or you're a hunter and you should prove that you buy a hunting license every year.
What it comes down to is not about where the guns are and how many of them there is. It's like an indirect play for political votes and nothing else. It doesn't make any sense. You know, did we see, because people have been getting ran over by vehicles, have we seen more regulations on cube vans or trucks or cars? You know, like, if you're the type of person that's going to hurt other people, you're going to use whatever you can. And it's been proven several times over the last few years, right? It's not a gun problem for law-abiding people. It's a justice problem. You know, you look at our police. They do all this work when meth was going rampant here. It still is, I suppose. Catch somebody, take them in. They're still in the courthouse doing paperwork, and the guy's walking out, promised to appear again next time. You know, it's our justice system. Big time. And the people that are doing these crimes, not getting put away. You know what I mean? Like, it's most of the time, the majority of the time, it's illegal guns. But if you're not around guns, you think that all guns are bad. Why does he need a semi-automatic shotgun? You know, why do I need a car that drives faster than 110 if the speed limit's 110? Why do I need a lot of things? If you're going to hurt people, you're going to do it with whatever you can find. That's just the way that it is. So they would never admit that, but it's just so vastly clear that that's what it is. It's not about making our country safer. Not at all. It's about getting votes. If you wanted to make it safer, you'd make it safer. You know, look, you've been arrested 25 times. You've been put back out on the street, violent crimes, violent offender, sex offender, things like that. You're actually going to jail, and you're not going to see the light of day again. That's it. I'll just get that problem right out of the way. You know, rather than putting people back out on the street, allowing them to reoffend. You know, you see these things online lately about some of the counties in Florida compared to Canada. In Canada, they're like, just leave your key fob by the door. That's what they want. They just want to steal your vehicle. They won't come into your house any farther. You know, just if you do that, that would be much better. Then there won't be any confrontation. And in Florida, they're like, look, we would like you to shoot these people. We have gun training classes. You know, we'd rather you shoot them. You know, it's just so vastly different in the States. And I mean, look, it's a whole nother kettle of fish. But the whole gun thing for law-abiding legal gun owners, it just makes no sense. And a lot of times people that support that just aren't around guns. They think that maybe all guns are bad. Criminals are going to be criminals. If you want to hurt people, you're going to find a way to hurt people, whether it be with a gun, a knife, a hockey stick, a vehicle, a bomb. And that's just the way that it is. But you and I are paying the price.
We've got a fantastic regulatory system too for it, like for the background checks and to
Oh
be able
yeah,
to get a gun or even a restricted, like to get a handgun, is very difficult.
no question.
And I'm glad you mentioned it because I was thinking the same thing with regards to self defense. We don't have castle law in Canada,
Yeah,
which I think we should.
most people have no idea like lots of people around here would say, oh, if somebody broke into my house, man, I would hurt them, but you wouldn't know off the bat. It seems like, if somebody did come on, I don't know what happened about that guy in Moncton there. There was 3 or 4 guys broke into his house and he shot one of them and killed them. But right off the bat, you're going to jail. They're not going to pat you on the back and say, good job, you killed somebody or you shot somebody.
Yeah.
So for you with your family out here, like, would you know what you could legally do? You want to defend your family, but geez, you don't want to go to jail either for trying to do it.
At the very least, I've heard guys like that will end up getting improper storage of a firearm because you shouldn't be able to get to it that fast.
Yep.
But I remember when we had the fire this spring, the response time for the fire department was 30 minutes to Meductic
Right.
for them to get here. And my house would have been gone if I didn't have my fire extinguishers and stuff. The same thing, RCMP, I think closest RCMP is what? Woodstock?
Yep.
Makawik?
And they could have been in Tobic at the time. Right?
So if somebody breaks into my house, I would assume the rule is force +1, basically. If they break in and they have a knife, okay, you can use a gun. But if they break in and, they're not going to hurt you, well, then you have to use a baseball bat. Like, if they break into my house with my family and my kids, I would allegedly deal with it.
Yeah. Well, and the second you lay a hand on them, Ben, at that point, you've assaulted them.
Yeah.
So, A, there's a break-in. But then B, there's also an assault that we have to deal with on a separate level. Yeah, should you have beat him up? I guess so, but you still assaulted him. As far as the criminal code's concerned. So yeah, we just, to work as hard as we have for the things that we have around here, and that's the way that this area is. It's made up of blue-collar, hard-working people. We shouldn't have to worry about the toy that we have, our side-by-side or our four-wheeler, going missing and then never finding it again. It's, we shouldn't have to worry about that stuff. And I mean, those things happen, but people should feel confident that they're able to defend their castle. Like you said, the castle law is a great thing, I think. And I think a lot of people would probably agree. I mean, I'm sure there could be a debate on it, but, I worked hard for what I have, Shouldn't have to worry about somebody coming in and stealing it and going, oh, well, I don't know. If I hit this guy, if I shoot this guy, what's going to happen to me? Am I going to never see my kids again? Like, what do I have to do? Wait till he hurts my family? Like,
I think that comes back to, like we said, with regards to regulation, over-regulation.
no question.
The government is making too much money, has too much money, is too big, and so they're just bored and making up rules.
And it just always goes back to the same things. Like, okay, we're going to bring in some gun laws. Okay, well, how did they work before? Like, when I think about that, nobody talks about the over $2 billion that was just burnt, basically, thrown away on a program that never worked, never saved anybody's life. Like, how many hospitals could you build with that? How many mental health professionals could you hire with that or train? A lot.
They're doing the same thing now. They've proposed another gun buyback program that's going to cost billions of dollars.
Right, and what are you going to do with them? What have you been doing with them? You're not destroying them. Again, and that brings up a good point. Like I did say, that if you're the type of person that's going to hurt somebody, to try to kill them or a bunch of people, you're going to do it with whatever you want. But we tiptoe or don't even tiptoe around the actual issue. I've had guns all my life. So have you. You've been angry at people. You've never shot anybody. You know right from wrong. You're not going to use that weapon on somebody else. You're not going to point a gun at somebody else. But if you have...
It's the first thing you learn in firearm safety.
Right. It's the first thing you
Finger off
learn.
the trigger and don't point a gun at somebody else unless you plan to use it.
It's the most highly regulated sport ever. you know. But there's a lot of mental health problems in our country. June was Men's Mental Health Month. Did you hear anything about it? No. And you won't, probably. But we don't talk about that. You know, would that be a good political play? Absolutely. Hey, actually, let's forget about the tools for a minute here. Let's take that $2 billion and train some mental health professionals so that people don't have to wait a year to get in to see somebody when they're desperate. You know what I mean? That's the real problem, in my opinion. And they don't talk about it, right?
And we lack community too. I was so surprised when we started hunting how, because I'm used to that blue collar aspect, like you go into it with a bunch of blue collar guys, you expect to be called an idiot and you don't know what you're doing. Oh, I can't believe, like, were you with us when I shot my first rough grouse? Or was that just Wes?
Yeah, I was there that day up in the tree.
I blew the crap out of it.
Yeah, you centered it up.
Because I didn't know. You aim for the head. I was
Yeah.
like 10 feet from it. Aim
Yeah.
for the head so you don't destroy all the meat.
Yeah.
And not one person called me an idiot. You
No.
laughed because it was funny. I destroyed the freaking bird.
Yeah.
But everybody was so welcoming and like, okay, next time,
Yeah.
don't screw up.
Rite of passage, right?
Yeah.
It just, yeah, it's just one of those things you learn from your mistakes, right?
But that's something that we just don't have, just community mindedness. We don't have men getting together. We don't, like, I barely know my neighbors here.
Yep.
And if we had more people, how many times do you hear of, like, the serial killer or the criminal that they, oh, was such a nice guy and you didn't know him? How many times did you meet him?
Exactly.
But if we had closer knit communities, and that's what I try to do with the farm, is I want to feed our community. So if we had a closer knit community where it's like, oh, you know somebody's struggling. You know somebody can go to you. I know I could message you like, hey, I'm depressed as hell. I'm dealing with some shit.
And we don't, and it's not like we're not connected. Like,
we're more connected than ever. Goodness, we're sitting both next to our cell phones.
But social media has made us antisocial.
It's that false sense of social life.
Yep.
That you think that liking somebody's picture or commenting that you have an actual relationship.
Bad enough for most people that if the phone rings, they're like, oh, geez, I wish they'd just text me. What are we going to talk about? I'm going to have a conversation here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it really totally has. Before, you'd wonder what they're doing down the road. There was community events. There was clubs. You know, post-war, that's how people got together. You know, the Elks Club, the Legion, the Knights of Columbus, the Masons, Eastern Star, Shriners, you know, people, that generation got together and saw value in that community, right? And, you know, talking like this. And you're absolutely right. We don't gather anymore. You could blame that, I suppose, on COVID, but we didn't gather. It was already on the way down. Social media has definitely made us antisocial that way, you know, to the point that we just don't, you know, when there's events, lots of times people look for a way out, you know. And you're right, places like this where you are, community's huge, right? You like I was talking about with the small farms, like people depended on their neighbors to do well, right? Everybody looked after everybody else. You knew what was going on in the community, but that generation maybe has tried to pass that down, but things have changed, right? We like comfort. We like things that are easy, you know, and just even sometimes just leaving your house. It's a lot for some people, right? So it's a shame. It really is to lack that community like that.
The culture has really changed since we were kids. I remember having so much opportunity. I told Nicole the other day that like the 2000s or the late 90s and early 2000s was like peak Canada, at least.
Yeah.
Because you could go out, you had time to go on vacation, you could do things. Whereas here, so many people are working multiple jobs. They don't have time, or they're always tired or whatever. Whether it's a false sense of tired, because I feel like people are still working 40-hour weeks, but they're spending too much time on their phone, staying up late or whatever. Or if it's genuinely having to work 2 or 3 jobs, work your ass off to not make enough money, to stress about the bills, to have, everybody's got a side hustle, 2 or 3 jobs. Some of us enjoy the multiple aspects of it. Like you've got multiple jobs that you do throughout the year.
Absolutely.
But some people are just run ragged. And that then turns into those mental health issues.
100%. And it's about how we spend our time. And when I talk about that we like comfort, we don't even like it. We're addicted to it. We're very much addicted to our screens. Our kids coming up through are very much addicted to screens and screen time and that dopamine they get. They don't spend as much time outside as we did. Like I just randomly, when I was driving out to go training yesterday, I was thinking about, like, when you got out of school, summertime started, man, you were on your bike, tackle box and your book bag, going fishing, with your buddies, or you had stuff that you did, you just rammed around outside all the time. Times, like you said, have definitely changed that way. I mean, kids are still kids, some, but things have changed. Our culture has changed a lot that way. Yeah, people are just inside more than outside. But you mentioned people seem tired, and I think that's what it is. Like, if you took a notepad and you wrote down every hour of the day what you're doing, and when you have a spare second, what you do with it. And most of the time it's, I better check and see what's going on. I mean, I better flip through all my things here.
Yeah.
Just flip through, you know what I mean? To see what's going on in the world. Like, we fill our time, but we fill it a lot with screen time. And it's definitely harder for people to get by nowadays. It takes a lot more money. Our power has gone up. People at this point now, I think in 25, are struggling. Certainly in our area, like they're hard up, unfortunately. So, but yeah, they do. People they work a lot and maybe have other side hustles, but I think a lot of it is that we're not comfortable to be just chill with our own thoughts. We have to fill our time with something else, right? You have to sit and stare at a screen, just our culture now. And I think it drags the life out of you. I think a little bit more time without that stuff, spent outside, getting a little more sun, having a little more routine to your life. Because our culture is unhealthy now. Really. I mean, you could speak on that quite a bit, but, there's not a lot of people working out. A lot of people are, struggle with diabetes nowadays. There's a lot more convenience in food, and, if that'll save you a little bit of time to do something else, that's what we're going to do. It's definitely a thing, having a little bit of routine in your life, exercising, eating good food that maybe takes you a little bit of time to prepare, and consuming good content. And I mean, content doesn't always have to be from a screen. Like, it could actually be a physical book that you read. It's probably quite a bit better for you, and getting a little more time outside, a little more sun on your face in the morning, having good habits that way for your health, I think would help people out a lot with their mental health. It makes sense why people have mental health trouble a lot more now. Is it more now than it was years ago? I don't know. We're more connected now, so we hear about it more. I feel like it is, though. Just because of the way we live our life. I don't know. What do you think?
I think so many jobs now are intangible, like they exist in cyberspace.
Yep.
They're not real. I recently got a new toy. I have a laser cutter that I've been making signs with, and it's so cool to actually see something come to fruition that I have made. Although I made it on the computer, but to be able to cut it out and then paint it and put it together, that I've got a thing.
Nice.
And even the same thing with podcasts, with videos. Like, I make it, I post it on social media, and you get that false dopamine bump. Yep. You're excited that, somebody liked my video or enjoyed 100%. It or commented. But then you put the phone away, you plug it in, and you sit there and you're like, I'm alone.
Yep.
Nobody else is around me. When's the last time I invited somebody over? And there's different personalities. I'm rather introverted. I'd rather this one-on-one scenario rather than have a bunch of people come tour the farm. Like, for me, that would be too much.
Yep.
But Yeah, I think you're right. I think there are a lot of people struggling now, and more people aren't able to do anything about it. You don't have time to go out to a festival. You don't have time to go out to make something, do something tangible because you're so busy just churning.
Yeah, and again, I think that when I said that comment about routine, like I have never been a naturally organized person. I see that in my son, you know. I have these conversations with him. Look, I sometimes have to wrestle myself to be organized and stay on task, but I do it because discipline is what works for me and everybody else. We don't like that. It probably doesn't come natural to most people, but having that routine in my life of getting up, starting my day at the gym, coming home, getting something good to eat, having, half an hour there to practice some gratitude if I want to, read some devotions, things like that. Just have a little bit of quiet time before everybody gets up, look at my schedule for the day, and then go through that schedule, have things planned out. That's not naturally who I am, but that's what works for me.
When did you discover that? How long did it take to figure out like you need that?
Oh, I had a big change. Like, I started going to the gym about 5 years ago, but I would say 2 years ago now, I really started to take it serious, read a lot of good books, and it just kept saying the same thing over and over again. And I was like, actually, I don't really have much structure that way in my life. Like, I would be a natural procrastinator for sure. And I wanted to do all the things, but I couldn't do them all if it wasn't organized. And I just started. One of the best books I ever read was Atomic Habits, James Clear. It changed my life for sure. It helped me out a lot. And, I just started making tiny changes, audited kind of the way that I did things and where I spent my time. And, you know, the, sometimes we look at all those changes that I've made as one big thing, and it's like, it's way too much. Well, it is way too much all at once, but if you do a little bit every day, which is the same sort of a plan I have for my dogs, like 1% a day, you know, he uses the example. I'm going to get this wrong, but you'll understand. You take off in San Francisco, heading for New York, okay? You set a heading, but it's 1 degree off of your target. Well, by the time you fly from the West Coast to the East Coast, you're way off, even though it was a small diversion off the line that you were supposed to take to get there. So 1% a day, trying to get a little bit better with, okay, tomorrow I'm going to wake up an hour early so I can get some of this stuff done, which is going to mean I'm going to have to go to bed a little earlier because sleep is important, to your health. I'm going to make sure I get a little bit more sun on my face early in the morning. I'm going to put a little more into my body, mind, body, and soul so I can feel better. And you do start to feel better. I'm going to drink a little more water. Again, is that stuff natural? Nope. I was never like that. But it's definitely made me a better dad, better person all the way around. Better businessman. Things are planned. I have a planner, a big one, that I have the 3 companies, Waterfowl, East Maritime Dog Training, and East Coast Calls. First thing in the day, I have a few things that I have to get done. And then depending on what's going on after that, it's usually training. I mean, my days are depending on how hot it's going to be. But it's like Groundhog Day every day. And I never thought that I would be that person. But discipline is what works for me. I feel much better. If I don't get up in the morning, I don't feel whole, right? So, but as a man, for sure, going to the gym, eating healthy, reading good books, and just making sure that you have good content, having a little bit of time each day to sit down and think about what you got to do the next day. I'll tell you, one of the things that was really good for me too was practicing a little gratitude. You know, being thankful for stuff. It might be the most simple thing. Like, it could be, hey, today I went to Tim Hortons. I got this drink that I like, and they made it perfect. Best one I've had. Okay, well, you can be thankful for that. You know, it's okay. It doesn't have to be a major thing. But to sit and, you know, focus on things that are positive around you when there's so much negativity, it's good. It's good. Take a little bit of time. Now, the other thing I do a little bit of now too is manifesting. You know, some people might think that stuff's a little quirky, but I'm telling you, it's about your mindset and how you see things, right? There's negativity all around us all the time. It's always there. You know, with our social media, it's coming at you all day long, right? You have to stop and take a step back at times, see things differently. But
What do you mean by manifesting?
You have to see in your mind where you're going. You know, like it could be achievements that you want to make. And I'm not a big, I think it's good to have goals. But those shouldn't be the end. Like with my dogs, now it used to be, okay, I got to get this dog trained and I want them to be a master hunter before they're 2 years old. Like, it's not a race for me anymore. My goal is to make a good dog overall in every aspect that I could go to the national with, whether they're 4 or 8, and pass it, you know, not rush through things and you know, skip over things or miss steps to be in a race to get there. If you have a quality plan that you follow and you're looking to get just a little bit better on things every day, you're following your plan, the goals you want to reach will be things that'll happen along the way. But you have to have those in your hand or in your head. You have to know what it is. Okay? Even writing it down is good so you can look at it and you just think about that every day. You know, I've got every color that you can get in a field trial on my wall except for blue. Right? I've been close. Some guys go their whole career never win one. You know what I mean? But I'm going to show you something here. If I can get that closed. I've got it right on my phone so I can look at it every day. Right? You can manifest winning that in your head, what it's going to take to get there. And it's not by not doing. You still have to go and do. You can't just be sedentary and think those things are gonna come to you. But I just see that over and over and over again. It's a good book I read called Think and Grow Rich. It's kind of the same thing, right? Manifestation is, you know, Conor McGregor always said, if you can see it here, you know, it'll happen. And it's right. You work hard and see it in your mind. You are what you think about most of the time. You know, so I truly believe in that. But you have to take time to do it. You know, you have to take that time to just sit and not be bothered with stuff. Even for like 10 minutes, just come out here and sit with your own thoughts and think about those things. You can manifest that stuff in your life. It's happened for me. Yeah, for sure.
How does that strict routine that you've developed fit in or screw you up when waterfowl season comes?
Oh, it's how I thrive. It's totally how I thrive. Every day I get up at the same time, which is a stupid 30 in the morning, and yeah, we have a routine of how we do things, and that discipline is the only way to make that run over. You know, we guide for at least 40 days a year. And there's so many variables in the weather and the equipment that if you don't have that discipline, it would be a mess for sure. Knowing that when you're done, you come home, you get as much sleep as you can, which at the most in the afternoon would be 3 hours. And then you're back up and you're scouting at a specific time. it definitely hasn't screwed me up. If anything, it's made me better. We get to the field, Steve knows what he's got to do, or Brad or Julian, they go do it. I do my thing. It's very efficient that way. So it's definitely helped me. And again, it's not a natural trait of mine, but you don't know what you don't know. You have to give yourself a little bit of grace there, right? Like, you could say, geez, I messed around and I made so many mistakes because I wasn't disciplined. Well, look, you don't know what you don't know. Like, if you haven't formally been taught those things or taken the time to read about them or have somebody mentor you, which I'm sure you've had some mentors in your life. I've had some really good ones too. Then it's not just going to appear in your mind. Like, you have to learn these things. So, again, reading some good books like that, Atomic Habits, Extreme Ownership with Jocko Willink was a really good one. I've got a whole list of them there that have been really good to, certainly as a business owner and as a father and things like that. So, because there's no way I could do it otherwise if I wasn't disciplined. There just isn't. I've got too much going on, and it would just be chaos all the time. We would never know what we were going to have for supper. I would never know when my kids, I got 2 kids in competitive soccer right now. Waterfowl East is going. We've got 14 or 15 pro staffers on East Coast calls, people talking to me about dog training, things like that. There has to be some structure there, or it would be an absolute mess. You would never know. And I mean, look, I'm human. There's going to be days where I'm just whacked and I know my body, and I'm like, I need to rest today. I can't be getting up at 4:30 this morning to go. I'm gonna just rest. But with guiding, to answer your question, it's made a huge difference. And just doing things now when they need to be done. As a procrastinator, like, when I think, oh, I should probably do that, my body's leaning me to, and the old me was like, I'll just walk. You need to do that. You've identified it in here, but you're going to walk away from it because you can do it later. But it won't happen later, or you'll have to rush through it later. So do it now. So that's what I do.
It's always the stupid small things. I've been doing the same thing recently, and it's awful because it's like, oh yeah, I need to throw that out. I'll do that soon. I need to pick that up. I need to put the laundry away. So yeah, I'll get to it. So I'll add it to the bottom of the list.
Yeah. Prioritizing was a big thing. You sort of prioritize and execute each and every day. You're going to have a running list of things, and you just have to prioritize them. And you have your day scheduled out, and things are going to fly in there and mess your schedule up sometimes. Things that you have to deal with right now, but you're far more able to discern. If you have that sort of mindset of, okay, these are all the things that I have to do. I've got maritime dog training, waterfowl East Coast calls, family, in no particular order there. These are all the priorities that I have, or these are all the things that I have to do. Let's prioritize. Having a schedule, my planner, I live and die by that. I don't have it in my phone. I used to do that. I don't know. I had a thing on Facebook where I would send appointments to people. I'm still very much a person that likes to write it down. I do. So I have a planner that I keep. But just having that, like, I have my daily routine on my phone, and I'll tell you what we like to do. We like to check things off. So it's got all those little bubblers there beside each thing. And when they're done, I just check them off. That's my foundational routine outside of the things I have to do that day. And just being disciplined about it, knowing and telling myself over and over and over again that's what works best for me. But the do it now factor of, like, oh, I should probably take that inside out of the truck. Oh, I'll get it after. No, take it in right now, And you have to be careful about that too, right? Like, you can't ping pong around and allow your inner ADHD, if it lives within you, to take over. I should, because then it would be, oh, I should do this now, and then I should do this now. You have to have some structure there, but having that structure every day, knowing what, and I see it happening. Just, I have those 3 companies. Okay, what needs to happen with each of them today? What's the weather going to be like? Okay, this is what I'm going to do. My dog training week is planned ahead for my dogs and my client dogs. And then I have my lessons that I know how we're going to progress with each of those people. Then I know what time soccer games are or practices, things like that, or things that the kids might have going on. And, when I look at my running list of stuff for Waterfowl East looking ahead, I just prioritize that and stick it into my schedule every week. But I was very unorganized. And as I went along, I'm not exactly sure how I made anything work. It didn't work well, that's for sure. You just have to be. But understanding that it's little bits at a time. That book by James Clear is super good. And he's got some work pages there too that would definitely help you. What you need to take in and out of your life. I'll tell you, you start writing down what you do every hour of the day, be honest with yourself, you'll find where you waste your time. Even just doing that to start with. What can I, like you were saying, what do I not need to do? I come in for lunch, I sit down, I have my lunch, and then I think, well, I'll scroll on social media for a bit. Are you watching the time? Did you just waste an hour and a half when you should have been doing something else? It can happen pretty easy. So you start auditing your time and what I do. And people say, well, I don't want to have that much structure in your life. That's fine. But the people that do are
successful,
are killers. They're and it's never been easier nowadays in that aspect, because we're so addicted to comfort and maybe don't put in the effort we should. The door, I say to the kids all the time, like, the door's wide open for you guys to go and do, But again, for me, the mindset of things, like, I'm fairly competitive and I do give myself grace, but I'm also, as a business owner, you don't have somebody standing over your shoulder. You could say that, but you have a responsibility to your family, right? To do right every day. Do what you're supposed to do. That's my line to the kids. Do what you're supposed to do. It's just that simple. What do you have to do today? When you go to work, you do what you're supposed to do. This is the task they give you. You do it, right? Yeah, for sure.
Finding efficiencies is huge too. I found that, especially around here. I've been looking at things and I'm like, okay, can I justify a tractor or something to be able to make my life a little easier? Because the number of times that we've been looking for a side-by-side recently, because the number of times that I drive back and forth between the animals and the garden, it doesn't seem like a lot, and it's not very far, but it adds up in a day when you're like, oh, I left my drill over there. Okay, I got to walk over there and then walk back, as opposed to hop in the side-by-side and zip, zip. Okay, is that worth the few grand, 5 or 10 grand I'd be able to invest in a unit like that?
Yeah, and what time does that take in your life? So other things, like, sometimes as men we have the I can do that myself factor. Okay, well,
so my truck isn't fixed.
Yeah, simple things like that, or even like cleaning your truck. You could clean your truck yourself. You'd have to go buy the stuff, and then you'd have to take the time to do it. So let's say each hour of your day is worth $100, and it takes you 3 hours to do that. Well, I can do that myself. You can, but not as good as the guy that does it for a living, who might charge you $100, and it's going to take him an hour to do it. So it pays you to pay him, and sometimes that's a tough mentality, but we can't. That was one of the things that I had to learn for myself. I can't do it all myself. Some things have to be subbed out, so that I can continue to do the things that I'm good at.
Yeah.
Not that I couldn't do that, because I could. But it makes more business sense for me to pay you to do that, right? Or somebody that's a professional at doing this or that or whatever, we have to think about our time, and when you're talking about efficiency, like, would it be easier on your body to do, that's another thing. Would it be easier on your body if you had a tractor or an ATV or something like that? Like, you're self-employed. What happens if you get hurt? You have to make your job easier, right? Yeah. Not because you're lazy, but if you want to do this for a long time, you want to be in one piece. it definitely depends on your body being whole. That's a big part of the reason why I started working out and going to the gym, right? It's not because I'm going to ever compete or anything like that. I just want to be healthy and whole. I'm self-employed, the only income in my house. Like I need to be able to work and earn a wage. And, it depends solely on my body, my business, and yours too, so it's important. So yeah, if I totally get that efficiency when you're auditing, like, how much time do I spend doing this? And could I make it not only easier on my body, but more lucrative if I save that time? And over a week, how much time would I save by having that thing? Well, then it would probably pay me to have it in a lot of ways. Not just because I want a new toy, right? Yeah.
Well, that's always the part in the back of your head too, because it's like, oh, I could get a new truck, but do I just want? Am I just being selfish? Do I just want the new thing because it's a new thing? And I feel like you are inundated with that online. I mean, we're marketed to all of the time.
That's what we are. That's what social media is.
Yeah.
It's a platform to
Well,
market.
it's not even just social media. You drive by billboards, you drive by at the store, all the flashy whatevers, and you're constantly seeing, oh, you need the new thing. And I find I'm the opposite now, where I'm immune to it, such that I, if I see something that somebody's trying to sell to me, I don't buy that thing because you're trying to sell it to me.
Yeah. Yeah, because you've
I
been marketed to
yeah.
so
Oh, I
much.
can't stand it. It drives me nuts when somebody's like, oh, you need this, you need this, you need this.
One of the things about vehicles is I find that, you pay either way. Like, I have a new vehicle now. First new vehicle I ever had. That's I had the other one and then waited for this one. And I always thought to myself that I'd probably never own a new vehicle. But I'm sort of at the mercy of that. And I realized that when I had my dog truck. Now, I'm thankful that in the time that that truck's engine went, that was right when my board and train dogs were leaving. My field trial and hunt test season was over. They had it fixed before guiding season. But then it blew again in the middle of hunting season. And I'm right at the end of guiding season. I'm like, okay, if that would have been in the middle of June or July, what would I have done? You're not going to take that box off and throw it on another truck. Like, I was out of options. What would I have done if that would have been in the fall and I was on my way someplace? I have to drive something that's reliable. Do I need $150,000 vehicle? No, I don't. But, I do drive a Tundra. I've had good luck with them. They're a pretty solid vehicle, right? Like, your truck was a pretty solid vehicle.
Yeah, the engine's fine. It's
Yeah.
all the mechanical stuff just
Right.
needs repaired.
Yeah, you'll be driving down the road on the frame of that thing, right?
Yeah.
They're just solid. They're rock solid. And for guys like us, that's what we need, right? Something that's going to be solid and get us there. So some things you can get a bargain on, but other things I've just sort of realized and just told myself that you're going to have to spend money on this. It's just going to be sort of a cost. We like to say, oh, it's just the cost of doing business. Some stuff like that is for me. Just because I'm like, if something did happen, like, that's my business. All my stuff's in there,
Yeah.
like, yeah, you got to kind of have something good. And it's hard sometimes because nothing's cheap, right?
Good isn't cheap.
Good isn't cheap, and we're not making any more money, right? Things have gone up in price, but we're not filling our pocket. I'm not lining my pockets. I don't know about you. You know what I mean? Like, we're just trying to, most people around here, the 1% is definitely 1%, The rest of us are right down around that line, very blue collar around here. But yeah, man, people are just certainly trying to get by. But yeah, to go back to your other question, that's there's several factors there that went into the changes. But I listened to a lot of good podcasts. James Clear's book came up several times. I'm like, I should read that book. So I started to read it, and I'm like, well, that would be kind of easy to do. A little bit of a change there. And I just know that that's how I thrive now. It's never like that. I just know that that's how I thrive. And I try to pass that on to my kids, but I also give them grace too. Like, I'm 40. Just sort of figuring it out, right? Getting that part of things solid. They're teenagers. Like, I can give them the information. Doesn't mean they're going to do it right away. But they'll figure it out at some point, you know. Pass along good information to them.
At least having that foundation of knowing how to do it. Because so many people, I mean, how many people did you meet in their 40s, 50s, 60s that never figured that out or don't want to? They just fly by the seat of their pants, or they're employees for a company. They don't have to worry about anything. So much as business and money that way for most people. Yeah, I find a lot of people don't care to.
Yeah, and you're right. And again, it all comes back to the discipline factor. Like, things make more sense for me when they're planned out. I know now well enough at this point. Like, I always say this is the time of year right around June. Like, last week was the halfway mark. I think last week was week 26. Okay. So anybody that's working hard at their business or going hard, trying to create content, things like that, that tail end of the second quarter of the year, like, you've been going hard all year, that's kind of when people start to burn out, right? So I know, and that could be at any time where you're just like mentally drained and stuff. I know for myself, like, you can't go 10 out of 10 all the time hard. You have to definitely make sure that you stop, take some time daily, really, for self-care, which is, you know, for me, going in the gym. But it could be more than that. You know, maybe it's at the end of the day just getting away from the house and the dogs, and when I don't have the kids around, and going for a drive, or going out to one of my bear stands, or going to see one of the boys, or, you know, anything that's a little bit out of the scope of what I had sort of planned at that point. You got to look after yourself. You know, going back to making changes, reading good books and stuff like that. You can't pound yourself into the ground all the time. There's only, you know, so much of you. So, yeah, got to look after yourself. Self-care is huge, especially for men. Yeah.
It's important for everybody. I think it just, we understand men. We don't understand women as well, and they need to figure it out for themselves too, how to take care of yourself, how to navigate whatever, whether it's motherhood, whether it's your job and whatnot.
Oh, no question that it's valuable for everybody. But certainly as men, where we're doers, and we always, I think, feel this responsibility to provide. And, you know, if
That's
we,
innate. I think that's, most men are just, that's in you, to hunt and to forage and to
it's
make
nature.
the bread.
Yep, it's nature. I think there's a level of guilt that comes along with taking time for yourself, especially when you have kids and a family and stuff like that. But you have to be whole, right? You got to look after yourself, you know, and that should be a little bit on a daily basis. You know, you have to look after yourself.
Can't pour from an empty cup.
That's right, man. Absolutely. I mean, you definitely cannot. And we're not good at that. I think if you ask most men, if you just stop and said, what do you do for self-care? Could they, you know, they might joke around a little bit, but could they honestly tell you? You got a hobby, you meet up with the boys once a week, or do you know, what do you do? It's a good question. There was a time in my life when I just shook my head. I don't know, actually. I love to hunt and train dogs and stuff like that. Those are my jobs. You know, I don't even like them. I love them. You know, love those jobs. But it's also work, right? I have a responsibility to be there, you know, and to do those things. Like, what do you do outside of that? What you're doing every day, you know? Yeah, it calls you to stop and think. Nothing, right? At the time, I'm like, actually, I don't know.
Yeah, I can't think of.
Good question.
I'm not good at that. I'm horrible at being
Yeah.
able, especially having young kids. It's very difficult to find that time to be able to set aside time to be intentional.
Yeah, right. Because we feel such a responsibility and so much guilt if we do things for ourselves. But you got to look after yourself. You know, like you said, you can't pour from an empty cup. You got to look after yourself. So, when she asked me that question, that woman at the time, I was like, oh, well, you know, this is who I am. These are the things that I do. And she's like, yeah, but, you know, those are your jobs too. I'm like, okay. Then I don't know. I can't answer it. And I couldn't at the time. So it caused me to think. Yeah.
Thank you for watching. And if you liked this episode, please consider subscribing and letting us know your comments on what you thought of this episode.